Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 226 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. No Ayaz Sumra with me this week, no Eddie Chambers with me this week. I am riding solo on what has been quite a problematic week actually for the podcast, to say at the least. So I am alone. If you can stick with me for the duration of the show, it will really mean the world to me. Like I say, episode 226. We're going to have two guests on this week's show as per usual. Those two guests will be Jessie Vargas and Isaac Lowe, both men obviously out there in the States at the moment. Isaac Lowe, the interview with him is a little bit distorted. The sound is a little bit echoey. It's not as bad as last week's one with Gerald Washington, but I just want to apologise in advance for that. It is going to be the second and final interview, but of course up until that point everything is good. So I hope that you guys all enjoy this podcast once again. Let's get it underway. Let's start with the review part of the show. I'm going to try my very best to whiz through all of this as quick as possible just to get straight to the interviews. Let's start though in the EWS arena in Baden-Württemberg, Germany. Over here, Firat Arslan, 47-9 now with 3 draws. He took on Kevin Lerena, the South African. Obviously the fight took place at Cruiserweight. It was for the IBO World Cruiserweight title. A TKO win in the 6th round there for Kevin Lerena. Now what's impressive about this is obviously Kevin Lerena, you know, a guy that's had it kind of tough, to be honest with you. You know, the South African fighters, they are guys that have to, you know, do a lot of the self-promotion themselves. They don't really get thrown lots and lots of opportunities, but he's a top fighter. You know, he took his only loss in his career back in 2014. He lost on points to Johnny Muller. Obviously they had the rematch, I think it was a year or two later, and he was able to stop Muller in that fight, so he avenged the only loss he had. You know, along the way he's obviously beaten the likes of Dimitro Kucha, who I remember knocking out Enzo Maccarinelli at York Hall. You know, he beat the likes of Sefer Seferi and Arthur Mann, who was a prospect as well. And yeah, he knocks out Firat Arslan here, and even though Firat Arslan is 49 years of age, he's probably the best 49-year-old there is in boxing. You know, he's a tough guy, and it's been a while since he's lost. You know, he's obviously not the fighter he used to be, because age does catch up, but it's been 5.5 years since he last lost a fight, and that one was a world title fight against Yon Pablo Hernandez, who I'm guessing a lot of people probably listening to me now would forget about. He was a quality fighter that retired very prematurely, but yeah, you know, that was his last loss, so 5.5 years ago. Since then he hasn't had the best spell of opponents, but he's been beating people, he's been knocking most of them out, and yeah, it's kind of shocking really to see him lose, but it is what it is. That could be the end of the road there for Firat Arslan. A good win for Kevin Lerena, now 25-1. Moving out now to the Discoteca Memphis in Madrid, Spain. Over here, friend of the show Anthony Yard, 18-1 now. Now 19-1. That was his 20th fight there. A TKO in 2 rounds against Diego Ramirez, who's now 4-49 with 3 draws. Not really sure the point of the fight. I think it's so that Yard can quickly pick up a win, so that, you know, he can fight for a title in his next fight. That's you know, that's the rules in place. But you know, I mean, a terrible choice of opponent. Obviously a very quick knockout for Anthony Yard. A little quick you know, flight out to Spain, got the job done early, and I'm sure he was straight back. Yeah, you know, it is what it is, but it's a little bit distasteful. It went under the radar, but because it's, you know, just the volume of the mismatch that it is. You know, you look at that on paper, this guy was coming off about 6 or 7 consecutive losses. You know, he never in a million years should have been in the ring with Anthony Yarde, but it is what it is. I don't really begrudge Yarde for doing what he did. He's looking for a big fight real soon. I'm sure he's going to be, you know, right back in, you know, in a big fight in the very near future. I think that was basically a fight that, you know, if he would have won his last fight, obviously he'd have been a world champion because it was against Kovalev. But, you know, if he'd have won a non-title fight, he probably wouldn't have had that little fight there before he had another big fight. That little fight there was purely just to get him back to winning ways, so, you know, so he can be selected for fighting for a title of whatever level that title will be is yet to be seen. But all the best to Anthony Yarde. Moving out now to the Sheffield Arena in Sheffield, of course, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. Let's start here with the undercard. I'm going to start here with Dave Allen. He was able to pick up a KO in round 3 against Dorian Dark Fruits Darch. It is Strongbow, by the way, Dark Fruits. I was a little bit confused on last week's show. It is Strongbow. It's a delightful drink. Dorian Darch was down twice in the 3rd round. I think that's it for Dorian Darch. I think he retired after the fight, and that's what he probably should have done. He probably shouldn't have even really took the fight. It was just kind of a last little ditch payday, I guess. But yeah, another win there for Dave Allen. It looked a little bit strange the first couple rounds. Came out trying to box and move. Didn't really seem to suit him. But, you know, Dorian Darch wasn't really offering anything back. So Dave Allen could have put both arms behind his back and still probably, you know, looked all right in the first 2 rounds. Moving up the card once again, Martin J. Ward picked up a 10th round points win against Jesus Amparan, I should say. Amparan had a decent record, 16-1. I think he had about 14 KOs. He was down in the 7th round. He was down again in the 10th round. A really, really tough guy, you know. He showed tons and tons of heart. He was really hurt from the shots that put him down, you know, especially the shots that he took to the body. He took a lot of shots to the body, and, you know, he really had to bite down on the gum shield to get back up. I was quite surprised he did get back up, but he deserved to hear the final bell, and he certainly did. So yeah, credit to Amparan. Now 16-2, but Martin J. Ward obviously still closing in on a world title shot, perhaps. Now 24-1 with 2 draws. Talking of world titles and closing in, Terry Harper became the second lady to beat Eva Wallstrom. Obviously her one loss previously was to Katie Taylor. Her record, by the way, now is 23-2 with 2 draws. Terry Harper was able to unanimously beat her on points over 10 2-minute rounds. Wallstrom was down in the 7th round. It was for the WBC and IBO World Super Featherweight titles. Terry Harper now 10-0, and obviously a legit world champion. Obviously the IBO not really considered one of the big 4. And by the way, Terry Harper becomes the number 1, the first British female to actually win a version of the big 4 world titles, that being the WBA, the WBO, the WBC and the IBF. She's the first lady in British boxing history to win one of those 4 in the ring. Now, a lot of people will probably hear that and say, hang on a minute, what about Katie Taylor? Obviously not British. What about Jane Couch? Back then, she was fighting for, belts that weren't the IBF, WBA, WBC or WBO. And some people are going to say, all right, Nicola Adams, she didn't win the belt in the ring. So that's all. You can disclude all of those out of what I've just said. Terry Harper is the first British lady to actually win one of the big 4 titles, in the ring. So credit to Terry Harper, credit to her. She's out now celebrating. I think she's took her whole family away on holiday. Great to see. Moving up the card once again, Kid Galahad picked up a win now, 27-1. A win against Claudio Marrero, who was a good fighter actually. 24-4 now, Marrero. His corner pulled him out, I think it was. I don't think he retired on his stool. It's down as a retirement. I think it was the corner that threw the towel in, if I'm not mistaken. Can't really remember now. My memory is so poor. But Kid Galahad looked really, really good. Really, really good. In fact, I think they did stop it in the corner, actually, didn't they? If I remember correctly. But yeah, he looked really good, Kid Galahad. Definitely one of those fighters that you say does all the basics well, but nothing spectacular. he does everything well, to be honest with you. I don't think there's really a weakness in his game. His defence is fantastic. Once he gets you hurt, he goes in with those punishing shots. He's not really the biggest puncher. He's probably one flaw is that he's not a massive puncher, but he doesn't need to be. He turns his shots over properly. His reflexes are fantastic. The way he throws his shots, there's a lot of weight behind them, and he throws his shots correctly. That's the most important thing. Above power, he knows how to throw a shot, he knows when to throw a shot, and he knows how to get that leverage on his shots, even if he doesn't have all that snap. He's a phenomenal fighter, certainly someone I can see becoming a world champion. Of course, the news is now that Josh Warrington has parted ways with Frank Warren. He's gone back to Eddie Hearn. Interesting to see Eddie Hearn tweet out straight away that we've now signed the #1 featherweight in the world. I'm pretty sure he thought that Kid Galahad won that fight, because obviously he promotes Galahad, and he was promoting Galahad at the time when Warrington was with Frank Warren, and he said that Galahad won that fight. Everyone thinks Galahad won that fight, so surely Galahad, in Eddie Hearn's eyes, should then be the #1 featherweight in the world. But no, since he's been welcomed back to Eddie Hearn's stable, he's all of a sudden #1 again. I don't really understand the logic behind that, but it is what it is. It looks like that fight will probably happen again. Kid Galahad and Josh Warrington, the rematch, wasn't the best fight to see, but he deserves a rematch, I think, Kid Galahad, because a lot of people felt it was quite controversial. But forgetting both of those two, I'd like to see Shakur Stevenson get the fight against Warrington. He's now calling out for it now that Warrington's with Eddie Hearn. Shakur Stevenson believes that the fight will be easier to make. Let's hope he's right. I think Eddie Hearn has already been tweeting Shakur Stevenson. But anyway, that was a piece of news that I was going to save for the news part of the show, but it is what it is. A good win for Kid Galahad, like I say. And the main event, of course, Kell Brook, 39-2 now. A KO for him in 7 rounds against Mark DeLuca. DeLuca was down twice. It was for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Super Welterweight title. I've got to be completely honest. Kell Brook, who I thought looked awful last time out against Zerafa, he was hurt a few times in that fight. Obviously, he was with a new trainer at the time, John Fuchs. He's now back with Dominic Ingle, where he probably should have stayed all along. He definitely should have stayed all along. But, he was coming off, I think it was about 14 months inactivity, so I've got to take that into account a little bit, but I expected him to probably get Mark DeLuca out of there in a couple of rounds if he was going to be, still a fighter that can really cause a lot of problems to the top fighters at 154, I look at Kell Brook, I really like Kell Brook. I'd love to see him become a world champion at this weight as well, but I look at him and I think, if he's special, if he's still got it, if he's still a world beater, he probably should be taking a guy like this out in a couple of rounds, because this guy Mark DeLuca looked absolutely horrible in my opinion, and Kell Brook, he got hit a couple times, but it just wasn't all coming together for him. And like I say, I've got to take his ring rust into account, but he just didn't really look like the force he once was, It just didn't really seem to be the whole package. It didn't look like that. It didn't look like, this fighter who could beat the top guys at 154, You wouldn't really fancy him against Jamel Charlo or the rest of the guys there. So, based on that performance, I actually think Kell Brook is done. And based on his last performance against Zerafa, I thought he was done. So I think now or never for the Amir Khan fight. He may have a chance against Khan. As bad as Kell Brook, I feel, is at this stage of his career, as bad as he is, I still think he's got enough pop to knock Amir Khan out. So that'll be an interesting fight. But saying that, Khan might even win that one. But yeah, Kell Brook, he shouldn't really be in a tough fight. They're talking about him against Liam Smith. I'd like to see your thoughts on that fight, guys, who's listening to me right now. Let me know what you think. Please give me a tweet on Twitter at BoxHard Podcast. Let me know who you think wins that fight between Liam Smith and Kell Brook, because I think Kell Brook is the more talented fighter of the two, but I just think Liam Smith's got a lot left in the tank, a lot more left in the tank. And whether you like it or not, that fight there against Liam Smith, if that fight happens, that's going to be a war. Liam Smith is a very, very tough guy. He showed that against Canelo. He showed it definitely against Munguia. He's a tough guy. Kell Brook is not going to get him out of there. And Liam Smith can really, really punch to the body like all the Smith brothers could. He's a brilliant body puncher. And I just think that fight, stylistically, at this part of Brook's career, is a bit of a nightmare fight, really, for Kell Brook. We shall see. But please, please, please let me know what your thoughts are on that fight there. Moving out now to the Hard Rock Hotel in Daytona Beach, Florida, USA. Just a quick fight to mention over here. Evan Holyfield, the son of the former heavyweight world champion, the former 4-time heavyweight world champion, by the way. He is now 3-0. A TKO for him in the first round against Travis Nero, who's now 1-6. Nero was down 3 times there in the first round. Moving out now to the Civic Center in Indiana, USA. This one over here, just one fight to mention. Charles Conwell obviously returned to the ring for the first time since the tragic fight he had against Patrick Day. He returned with a bang. His opponent retired on his store after 4 rounds. That opponent was Ramses Agaton, who's now 22-12 with 3 draws. Charles Conwell still undefeated, 12-0. Big fights for him on the horizon, you'd feel. Moving out now to the PPL Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania, USA. Let's start over here with the undercard. Gary Antonio Russell picked up a win. His opponent Jesus Martinez got disqualified in the 6th round of a scheduled 8-rounder. Gary Antonio Russell, like I say, now 17-0. Not quite sure what happened there. It wasn't televised. Gary Antoine Russell picked up another win, another knockout win. He's now 13-0 with 13 KOs. A first round KO against Jose Marufo, who's now 12-10 with 2 draws. He needs to step up his opponents, really, to be honest. He needs to step up a little bit there, Gary Antoine Russell. By the way, shout out to Gary Russell Jr., who of course boxed in the main event, but he was working the corner for his 2 brothers. I think they said he was in the venue from about 3 p.m. and his fight didn't end up happening till something like midnight over there, so he'd been in the building for about 9 hours and he still managed to win his fight. He's a sensational fighter, but we'll get onto that in a sec. Guillermo Rigondo picked up win number 20. He's got that 1 loss to Lomachenko. He was able to pick up a split decision win over 12 rounds against Liborio Solis, former opponent of Jamie McDonnell. That one was for the vacant WBA World Bantamweight title. Solis was down in round 7. It was a very strange performance, really, from Rigondo. The crowd were booing him at times in that fight. He didn't seem like he wanted to engage. He was being outpunched and outlanded, and certainly outthrown in many of the early rounds by Liborio Solis. Liborio Solis certainly came to fight. But the thing about Rigondo, obviously we got to mention he moved down in weight. He moved down to bantamweight, which is crazy because I think he's now 39 or 40 or something like that. So he's done it backwards. Rather than moving up in weight, he's decided to move down in weight, obviously being the oldest he's ever been in his career. So credit to him for that. He looked okay. Again, it wasn't the best fight to watch. I definitely wouldn't want to watch it back even if I was paid. But when he lets go of his backhand, Rigondo, it's got a lot of power in it and it's extremely fast, and that is how he managed to catch Liborio Solis. He caught him, unaware, really. Liborio Solis was throwing shots, wasn't really worrying about what was coming back, and then bang, he gets hit with a backhand that he didn't really know what to do, and he got caught with the same shot about 3 or 4 times before the ropes kind of held him up and the referee jumped in and gave it a count. In the end, like I say, he ended up picking up the split decision. I felt like it was quite close, but Rigondo was making Solis miss at times and making him pay, and then Rigondo wasn't really throwing, that many shots. So not quite sure what the punch stats looked like at the very end of the fight. Solis did kind of slow down as the fight went on, but like I say, a very, very bad fight, and that level of inactivity during the fight for Rigondo, not throwing those shots, made it a very hard fight to watch and therefore a very hard fight to score. I was kind of zoning out, but like I say, a split decision there for Rigondo. He didn't really seem to care too much about the crowd booing when they interviewed him in the ring after the fight, but all the best to him. So yeah, that was that one. And then the final fight to mention, I think, of the review part of the show. Nope, there's one more card to mention, but this is the final one on this bill here. The main event, Gary Russell Jr., now 31-1, a unanimous decision for him over 12 rounds against the previously undefeated Tugstock Niambiar, the former sensational amateur. 11-0 going into the fight, now 11-1. Obviously a defense there, successful, of Gary Russell Jr.'s WBC Featherweight world title. It wasn't a bad fight, to be completely honest. It was very much a chess match. Gary Russell Jr., he always shows us these little glimpses. That's what it feels like, these little glimpses, because we get to see him box about once a year, something like that. He'd been out the ring for something like 270 days or something since his last fight, which is actually very short for him. It's usually about 370 days, something like that. But we got to see him box here, and he showed us once again how much skills he's got. He's one of the most skillful fighters in the world, and I've been saying it for years. It's his inactivity that's kind of stopped him from getting onto my pound-for-pound list. Not that I'm sure he gives a damn about who I think's in the pound-for-pound top 10 or whatever, but, he's a top fighter, pound-for-pound, skill for skill. He's right up there with the best in the world. Obviously, that one loss came to Lomachenko. He wants that rematch. He's talking about moving up to straight up from 126 to 135. He doesn't plan on stopping at 130. I think he was talking about perhaps doing it for Tevin Farmer. Obviously, Farmer ended up, losing to Jojo Diaz. So yeah, he's going to now jump straight to 135, I believe, and that will mean he's going to be vacating his WBC Featherweight world title. So opportunities will open up there for the likes of perhaps Isaac Lowe, who we'll be speaking to later on in the show. But yeah, a good win there for Gary Russell Jr. He didn't really... he got a little bit tired towards the end, but he didn't really lose control of the fight even when he was tired, to be honest. He controlled pretty much everything. Niambiar kept coming forward, showed tons and tons of heart. Another guy who I think, based on a loss, will probably become a world champion at some point in the future, He certainly didn't disgrace himself. He certainly didn't get beaten up. But Gary Russell was just, 9 times out of 10 a step ahead of him, really. And that's what it's about. It's about experience when it gets to that top level there. And Gary Russell Jr. has got that experience. Like I say, one of the best fighters in the world. A little bit too good for Niambiar, who, like I say, is still quite green as a professional. That was a big, big step up for him, and you've got to applaud that. He went the distance, and yeah, unanimous in the end there for Gary Russell Jr. But the final fight to mention, it took place at the Tyson's Playground in Virginia, USA. Friend of the show, Dusty Hernandez Harrison, now 34-0 with a draw. Very, very, very brilliant undefeated streak there. 35 fights, hasn't lost a fight, but he needs to step up. He took on Les Sherrington of Australia, who I really do not rate at all. Sherrington, another guy with quite a padded record, now 38-15. He was KO'd in 2 rounds by Dusty Hernandez, so quite expected there. But yeah, Hernandez at one point of his career, or Harrison, I think he mainly goes by Dusty Harrison. At one point in his career, he was ranked in the top 15 at 147 when Kell Brook was champion. He was closing in on a world title fight, and then for whatever reason he was kept out of the ring for about 2 years, and he just completely fell off the face of the earth. He's back now, but it seems like it's quite stop-start for him, and he's not really getting the fights he needs, because I tell you what, his prime will come and go. He needs to get going, really. But that is it, though, for the review part of the show. Just before I wrap up part 1, the final thing, of course, to do is to welcome our very first guest, yet again, another world champion for the BoxHard Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former 2-weight world champion himself. It is, of course, Mr. Jessie Vargas. Jessie, welcome to the show, my man.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. First of all, Joey, it's a pleasure. And what can I say, man? I'm excited, man. I'm excited for this next fight. We're a little less than 3 weeks away from the fight, and I'm in great shape. I'm nice and light, lean, strong, fast. I'm ready to shine.
It sounds exciting. It really does. So obviously, it's the first time we've had you on this show. You're currently with DAZN and, of course, Eddie Hearn. You were one of, if not the first fighters on the network on Matchroom USA. Just quickly, how's that working out for you right about now? Obviously, you've been there a period of time now. How's it going?
Yeah, well, it's all working out well, thankfully. We extended the contract by a fight in our last one, in our last fight against Alberto Soto. And, everything is going well, thankfully. I'm excited. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I also want to prove to Match from the Zone that, I'm happy that they believed in me. And, I want to come up with the victory for them. That way, I show them that, they made a good investment. And as you all know, everyone in this game knows me as an action-packed fighter. And not only that, but I also want to make sure that I am one of the best. I want to prove to everyone that I'm one of the best in the division. I think that a lot of people know it already, but I want to continue to reiterate it and until I'm at the top of the level.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you mentioned your next fight isn't too far away now. You'll box Mikey Garcia February 29th in Texas. Just give me a couple words on that fight and what you think is kind of in store for the fans that will be tuning in February 29th. Obviously, we're expecting a lot of action as all of your fights provide, to be honest.
Yeah, well, thanks, Joey. I think that the fans just know what this fight's about. It's going to be a fan-friendly fight. Two warriors, two fighters who fight with their heart. We don't give up, and we fight to the end. I just feel that, Mikey's a good fighter, but I just feel that I'm the better fighter. I feel that I have plenty of advantages that I can use in this fight to come out victorious. But ultimately, I have been doing my homework. My trainers have been doing an amazing job in bringing out the best in me, working on the game plan. Me also, with the experience that I've had, I'm able to relax, to enjoy this training camp and enjoy every day in it, whether it's out there running, working out in the fitness gym, working out in the boxing gym. I'm enjoying all of it. Even in the sparring sessions, I'm loving it. And I'd say that something has changed, in me recently. It could be just the experience, everything coming together, me knowing what I'm capable of, and I also have that fire of wanting to show everyone who I am. And come February 29th, we're going to have a great show. Of course, you have my fight as the main event, but any of these fights that on the undercard can be main event themselves. You have Martinez defending his WBC title. This is Martinez, is a great fighter. He's a fan-friendly fighter and one of my favorite fighters at the time, actually. He's really good. You have Chocolatito Gonzalez, who's also a great fighter, one of my good friends, fighting Jafai, the WBA world title. You have Joseph Parker, among other very good, talented fighters as well. All through the zone, all on Matchroom Boxing. I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to be headlining in it. And it's going to be a night that the audience is going to tune in. It's going to be a night where it's going to be nothing but action-packed fights. And it's going to benefit me because, it's going to be a lot of exposure. I'm going to generate a lot more fans after that night because I know they're going to be very happy with my performance because that's what I've been working for these last 2 months. Actually, you know what? It's been like 6 months that I've been working hard for this fight. Not knowing actually because, I was negotiated to fight Jaime Munguia back in September. And unfortunately, those negotiations fell through. But I was consistently training. And now at this fight here, 147, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling lean. And I can't wait.
Yeah, because, firstly, the lineup on February 29th is a brilliant lineup. The interesting factor about this fight is obviously, for me anyway, is the weight. You mentioned there the Munguia fight, that would have been at 154. You're at 147 again in this one. Mikey Garcia, we wasn't too sure if he'd stick at 147 after that fight with Spence, where obviously, he took his first loss and he looked really small in there, really, against Spence. Do you feel like the fight being at 147 is an advantage of yours?
I definitely feel that way, yes. I feel like it's an advantage to me because I am an actual 147 pounds. I was just recently thinking of making the jump to 154. And I was already. My last fight was at 151. But, we're just taking a step into the 154 category. But, this fight presented itself at 147. And I was on the verge of moving up. But for an opportunity like this, big showdown, that would please the fans, I said, let's do it, 147. I'm still making it pretty good, I feel strong. And I'm already close to weight. I'm about 158 pounds. It's only 11 pounds overweight. And, we're just making sure that we are very attentive to how the weight is dropping because I want to come in strong. You know, I don't only want to make the weight, but I want to make the weight and perform at optimum level.
And obviously, from Mikey's standpoint, I mean, you know, at 135 and at 140 for him, in my eyes, he's probably one of the best fighters in the world at those weights there. It was a little bit baffling when I first heard this fight had been announced at that weight. It's a risky, really, really risky fight for him. Who do you feel kind of needs the other one more at this stage, or do you kind of feel like you're both in similar situations at the minute?
I'd say we're both trying to prove a point. We're both trying to prove how good we really are, you know, and we have a large fan base, you know, we both do, and what can I say? I mean, this means everything to both of us. So I'm gonna make sure to not underestimate Mikey Garcia, you know, because I do know he's a good fighter. He is, you know, but I just feel that I have certain advantages that he doesn't have in this fight, and that are gonna work for me. After this fight, I mean, he can go down to 140 and become champion again. You know, I have no doubt, but I'm planning on winning this fight on February 29th.
And of course, you've been in world title fights. You've boxed on Mayweather and Pacquiao undercards. You boxed Pacquiao himself. Where does this fight rank amongst your biggest fights? It's got to be right up there.
Definitely. I mean, this is one of my biggest fights. Any fight that grabs the attention of the fans is one of my biggest fights. And apparently, this fight has had tremendous exposure. The people are extremely happy about it, and you know, it ranks amongst one of the best. I want to make sure to shine for it.
And the week before your fight, I do want to get your take. Obviously, we'll get to see that much anticipated rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Who do you feel wins that one, Jesse?
I think that's a 50-50 fight. I think that, honestly, I'm going to say that it won't go to the full 12. I just don't know who's going to win, you know, because both fighters have the power. I mean, in the first fight that they had, I feel that these fighters hurt one another with different combinations. I think Fury stunned Wilder about 2-3 times. And of course, I mean, Tyson Fury hit the canvas twice. So it's a fight that, in my eyes, I don't see it going the full 12.
A brilliant fight. Like I say, we're all definitely looking forward to that one. Now, again, we touched on the fact that you were eyeing up a move, you know, a move above welterweight. Obviously, you were world champion at 140 and 147. I remember when you beat Saddam Ali, and of course he went up to 154. He became a world champion. If he can do it, then of course you can. Is that a goal of yours before you retire, to eventually win a world title at 154, become a freeweight world champion? I'm sure it is.
Definitely, it really is. I'm actually thinking of becoming a 4-division world champion. I mean, my goal is to become a 4-division world champion, but in all due time, you know, one step at a time. Right now I have this fight at 147, and then, you know, soon after I'm sure I'll move up to 54. But, you know, step by step, right now I'm focused on this fight, making sure I win this one, and then I'll go on to the future.
And just the last couple questions really now for you, Jesse. I like to ask this question to everyone that we speak to from overseas. I get some real interesting answers to this question here. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Who comes to mind when I ask you, who's your favourite UK fighter? It can be from any era. It can be a guy that's still boxing today. It can be a guy that retired many years ago. Any era, favourite UK fighter. Who comes to mind?
Honestly, I like Anthony Joshua.
Okay.
I think he's brilliant inside the ring and out.
Yeah, a real role model, obviously, outside of the ring, and an exciting heavyweight.
And very talented. Very. I also like Carl Froch. I think he's a great fighter. I mean, he was a great fighter in his time.
Yeah, another one. Yeah, both popular answers. People say those two quite a lot. Yeah, like I say, just coming down to the last couple questions, I really want to give you an opportunity, Jesse, to just send out a message to any of your UK supporters that will be listening to this one from over here. Obviously, since linking up with Eddie Hearn, you know, we've got to see all of your fights live on TV, so your fan base over here has really, really grown. I've seen a lot of people over here, you know, calling your name for these big fights, and we're all really, and I can speak collectively here, looking forward to February 29th. What's your message to your fans from this side of the pond?
Well, first of all, I have to thank them for the support. I have noticed that the numbers have really increased, you know, with my fan base in the UK, and I appreciate it. And I meet several of the UK fans on Fight Week, and they asked me that they would love to see me fighting in the UK. That's something that, it's something that I want to do in the near future, actually. I mean, UK fans are always really great. You know, they're really energized once you see them. I mean, they're just into it. You know, I mean, they're 100% boxing fans, and I love that about them. And I just thank them for the support, and I'll be here to give them the best possible fight, you know, and that I possibly can. I have a great team. I have great promoter, advisors, everything, and we're going to give them great fights soon. And hopefully I can meet them in the UK sometime soon and fight there.
Yeah, that would be absolutely brilliant, by the way. It just come in my mind just then. Kell Brook and yourself, that would be a brilliant fight for 154.
I agree. That'd be a good one. Amir Khan, another name that's been out there as well.
Yeah. Brilliant fights. And just finally, Jessie, if you have one, then please give it to us. If not, then you don't have to. A fight prediction for February 29th. Obviously, Mikey's a tough guy. Yourself, you're a tough guy. If I had to give one, I'd say it probably goes the distance. I could be wrong. How do you see it playing out?
I see myself winning. I see Jessie Vargas coming out with the victory, landing some vicious right hands, uppercut, body shots, ultimately coming out with the victory.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, Jessie, it has been a real pleasure speaking with you this week. I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to wish you the very best of luck for February 29th, and we'll hopefully catch up sometime after. God bless.
Thank you. God bless. Take care.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. The big heavyweight fight is on. It's, of course, going to be Daniel Dubois taking on Joe Joyce. That one to take place on April 11th at the O2 Arena. Obviously, a brilliant fight, you know. A massive fight. Joe Joyce, unbeaten, all that amateur experience that Daniel Dubois doesn't have. And, of course, Daniel Dubois just banging people out at the minute. Lots and lots of sparring stories you hear that he's the real deal. This is the fight to prove that, you know. This is a tough fight. Really tough fight. It's a pick'em fight. It's a 50-50 fight. I wouldn't want to put money on either guy. Of course, I'll break it down a bit more in depth when it comes around, but a brilliant fight to look forward to there for April 11th. And of course, that is now, you'd have to say, kind of Frank Warren's biggest fighter, really. You know, with Warrington leaving, there's no world champions left in the stable. Obviously, Tommy Fury's a massive name now, thanks to Love Island and stuff like that. But Tyson Fury, that kind of thing there, it's a partnership with Bob Arum. He doesn't really own all of Tyson Fury. It seems like he's got the short end of the stick, really. And, it's a big blow losing Josh Warrington. And now, of course, Daniel Dubois kind of spearheads that whole promotional kind of thing with him. You know, he's the biggest name, and of course Anthony Yard is just under him. So a brilliant fight to look forward to there, April 11th at the O2. Also, we get to see another cracking fight. This one takes place on March 28th. David Avanesian, he puts his European title on the line against Josh Kelly. Obviously the pair were supposed to fight before. It didn't happen, and it's finally on. It's a fight that a lot of people were looking forward to because of all the build-up from the first one, because of the bad blood, because of both teams pointing the finger at the other side and stuff like that. We will get to see if Josh Kelly is the real deal. You know, he's looking forward to proving a lot of doubters wrong and stuff like that. He is class, Josh Kelly. He really is, but this is going to be the toughest fight for him. You know, David Avanesian's got that pro experience. You know, he's been a world champion. He's boxed in the States against Sugar Shane Mosley, stuff like that. Lamont Peterson. He's been in hostile territories in Spain and stuff like that, and he's come through Kerman Leharaga. So this is a tough fight. Josh Kelly's last couple of performances haven't really been up to par. You know, he's won these fights and hasn't looked that spectacular. And of course, he's got that draw that he had with Ray Robinson in Philly. So or it might not have been in Philly, but Ray Robinson is from Philly. But that's a cracking fight. I really cannot wait for that one. That's March 28th, and that's at the O2 as well. So the O2 is going to be providing some brilliant fights between March and April. Lewis Ritson, his next fight has been announced. It's going to be April the 4th. He takes on a former world champion, Miguel Vasquez, obviously a guy that's been in there with Mikey Garcia. He's been in there with Josh Taylor, but most recently he lost to O'Hara Davis at York Hall, but he definitely should have won the fight. He definitely should have beaten O'Hara Davies, and even O'Hara Davies thought so himself. So that's an interesting fight there, you know. Miguel Vasquez, is a proven tough guy. Ritson definitely won't be able to hurt him. No chance about that. That's what I will say. No way in the world does Ritson win this one by a knockout. It's either going to be a war that goes the distance and Ritson just edges him, or Vasquez beats Ritson. I definitely wouldn't rule that one out. It's a tough fight. Ritson's kind of shown his level. He was smashing people up on that domestic level. He moved up in weight, and then he didn't look that great. He didn't look that great. Had a couple of, tough fights, and then obviously against Robbie Davies Jr., that was a tough fight, even though he won well, but that was a tough fight, so I don't think he's, definitely going to go on to become a world champion like a lot of people thought. They were jumping the gun a little bit too quick with Ritson. So yeah, that's a brilliant fight there. That could go either way. That one takes place, like I say, in Newcastle, Saturday the 4th of April. Yeah, we mentioned about Josh Warrington leaving Frank Warren. He's now signed with Eddie Hearn. And yeah, that's really all the news, to be completely honest. We're going to try to whiz through the preview part as quick as possible. We're going to start with a card that takes place later today at the Westgate Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Over here, Sharif Rahman, of course, the son of Hassim Rahman. His record 3-0. I think he's been out the ring for quite a while. He returns here. No opponent just yet, but all the best to him for later tonight, should the event actually still go on. Moving out now to this one takes place tomorrow at the Honda Center in California, USA. Over here we have, I think this one's going to be on Box Nation, by the way, so don't miss that. But over here we've got Blair Cobbs, friend of the show, 13-0 with a draw. He takes on Samuel Cote, who's 23-2. Again, Blair Cobbs is a guy who everyone really seems to like because he's got a real big personality and stuff like that. He's a friend of the show. I've got a lot of time for Blair. He's a nice guy. He's a cool guy. But, even in his last couple of fights, he's been down, a couple times. In his last fight especially, he was down. But he managed to win the fight by KO. He's got an exciting style, and this guy here, he's no mug really. I mean, he's 36 years of age. He's Ghanaian, but he actually lives in the States, so it's not like he's an imported fighter that's coming to lay down or anything like that. He's got a record of 23-2, 16 KOs. His 2 losses came to Anthony Peterson and Fernando Carcamo. He's been a little bit inactive though. Only one fight in the last, almost the last 4 years. It's about 3 years and 10 months, something like that, since he last boxed. Since he was quite active. His last fight, basically, he's had one. Making that real confusing. He's had one fight since April 2016, where he lost to Anthony Peterson. He's had one fight since then. It was in October of 2019. He got a TKO in 2 rounds against a guy with a losing record. So, perhaps he's not really at his best at this stage of his career. Like I mentioned, his age is a factor. He took his shirt off at the press conference. He said to Blair Cobbs, "Let's go right now." He tried to call Blair Cobbs out on some of the things he's been saying. Also on the bill, we get to see Ryan Garcia, 19-0 with 16 KOs. He takes on Francisco Fonseca. It's another calculated kind of step up. Fonseca 25-2 with 2 draws. Obviously, last time out he got that draw with Alex Dilmagani. That one obviously took place over here at York Hall. They were supposed to fight a while before, then I think he collapsed or something in the dressing room. I can't remember what it was. Then obviously he had the fight with Dilmagani. It was one of the best fights that was televised actually in the UK last year. And yeah, it was at the back end. It was in November, but his losses came to Tevin Farmer and Javonte Davis. So he only loses to good fighters. So if Ryan Garcia can win well and perhaps even get him out of there quicker than Javonte did, then that's a big statement. It took Javonte 8 rounds back in 2017, so that could be interesting there. But very, very wise matchmaking they're doing with Ryan Garcia. I'm loving what they're doing. It's very, very clever stuff. And topping the bill, Jorge Linares. I want to just reel out a bit of my accent here as I'm on my own. It doesn't feel embarrassing. If I was reeling out my Spanishy accent, then if Ayaz is listening to me, I think sometimes he cringes. I think Eddie sometimes cringes. So no one's here, so I can say Jorge El Niño de Oro Linares. What do you think about that? I don't know, because you can't reply to me. That's what makes it fun. His record he takes on a guy with a record of 19-4 with 4 draws. That guy being Carlos Morales. Linares is a funny guy. It seems like he's had many phases in his career. He was assumed to be completely done before he boxed Kevin Mitchell, but I think there's no denying at this stage of his career he probably is coming to the very end. His last 4 fights, his record is 2-2. Obviously, he gave a good account of himself against Lomachenko. He was able to drop Lomachenko in that fight, we forget. But, a win over Abner Cotto. Then, obviously, he got stopped in a round by Pablo Cizzacano. That was an absolute shock. I couldn't believe that. That was crazy. One of the biggest upsets, actually, of last year. We forget about that, I tell you what, that's a late one. We were talking about all the upsets. That's one of the biggest upsets. That's up there with Ruiz and Joshua and all those other upsets. And then he's coming off a win against Al Toyagon, who's not a fantastic fighter. He was able to beat him on points. He completely shut him out, but realistically Toyagon probably should have been knocked out in that fight. Like I say, not really a good fighter. But anyway, let's talk about Carlos Morales. 19-4 with 4 draws, coming off a draw in his last fight against Masito Gesta, who, funny enough, is a guy that boxed Jorge Linares back in 2018. Linares was able to beat him on points, but he got a draw with Carlos Morales, and Carlos Morales has been beaten by Ryan Garcia. Like I say, he's also on the card. He lost to Ryan Garcia, interestingly enough, though, on a majority decision over 10 rounds back in 2018. He also lost to Rene Alvarado, who's a reigning world champion right now. He also lost to Alberto Machado. He's beaten a couple of names, I suppose, couple borderline names. He's beaten the likes of Dardan Zenunaj, who I think is a former opponent of Tevin Farmer, if I'm not mistaken, and he's beaten Charles Huerta. And that's another guy. I mean, they're not great fighters. Linares should have enough, but you just never know. You just never know with him. He's quite unpredictable. Moving now to the final 2 bills to mention. Let's start here at the York Hall in Bethnal Green, London. Over here, we get to see Fred Evans, obviously the Welsh, fantastic amateur turned pro. He's another guy that just, I don't know if he's a guy that hung around in the amateurs too long. He turned pro. 6-1 his record now. He was upset against a guy whose name has eluded me for a second here, but it was a guy who was supposed to be easy. It was a shock upset, and he's back here. His record 6-1. He takes on Wilmer Gonzalez, who's 20-16 with a draw. Harley Ben's back in the ring, 7-1. He takes on Dylan Draper, who's 1-41. Larry Ekondeo returns as well. His record 15-1. He takes on Nathan Hardy over 4 rounds. Nathan Hardy 9-29 with 4 draws. Larry Ekondeo's a good fighter. I remember being there when he lost at the Copperbox Arena to Gary Corcoran in a very, very, very close fight, by the way. And since then, it seems like he's just fell off the face of the earth. But he's a good fighter at 154. He can really, give anyone a tough test domestically at least. He's a good fighter, man. A guy with bundles and bundles of potential and talent, but he just I don't know what it is. It's been very stop-start. It seems like that fight against Corcoran was a few years ago. That was a long time ago, and I don't even know if he's had more than 1 or 2 fights since then, off the top of my head. He needs to get back at it, man. He's a real underachiever at this stage. And finishing up now at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. No one really to mention on the undercard, so let's just skip straight to the main event. Caleb Plant, 19-0, friend of the show, of course the reigning IBF World Super Middleweight Champion. He defends his title here against Vincent Feigenbutz, who's 31-2. It's not really, if I'm being completely honest, it's not really the kind of fights we want to see Caleb Plant in. I don't know if this is a mandatory or a voluntary, but if it's a mandatory, obviously you can't really avoid it. If it's a voluntary, then I'm guessing the American fans aren't going to be too pleased about this because, Vincent Feigenbutz isn't known really in the States. He's done okay in recent times. Obviously, you know, he's gone undefeated now for 4 years. He lost his last fight to Giovanni De Carolis, and then obviously, you know, he lost very early on in his career, his second pro fight. But since then, he has improved. He's not a bad fighter, you know. He's not a bad fighter. He can punch. He's still a young guy. He's still only 24, unbelievably. And of course, the Sauerlands bang on about him being one of the biggest punchers at super middleweight. Problem is, Caleb Plant is very, very hard to actually hit clean. You know, he's very, very good. His head movement's fantastic. His movement all round is fantastic, actually. His footwork is some of the best probably at super middleweight, and he's a guy I'd like to see boxing all those big names, boxing Billy Joe Saunders, boxing Callum Smith, boxing David Benavidez and the rest of the, you know, the top talent there at 168. But yeah, unfortunately, this isn't really that fight. It could still be interesting. I think this one's also going to be on Box Nation. I think Box Nation are showing a card on Friday and Saturday, so hopefully they show that one. But yeah, it's not a great undercard. The main event's really where it's at, and even the main event, you know, I expect Caleb Plant to probably you know, dance around, make Feigenbutz miss, and I wouldn't be surprised if he actually knocks Feigenbutz out around the mid rounds. So log that. But yeah, that's my prediction on that one. Again, we will be back with the prediction leagues next week and all the rest of it. We got to get back on that definitely for Fury Wilder, the fight week next week. But yeah, that's it for part 2. It's now going to be our second and final guest. Obviously, the interview, like I said earlier on, it's not. You know, there was a bit of echoing and stuff like that, so I apologise in advance if it's too hard to listen to. Then you got my permission to just skip right past it. But if you can listen, then I'd really appreciate it. Here is guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated lightweight, ranked number 10 in the world with the WBC. It is, of course, our very own Mr. Isaac Lowe. Isaac, welcome back on the show, my man.
Thank you very much for having us on. I'm sorry to stop you, but I'm not a lightweight, I'm a featherweight. Just get it clear that one up.
I knew that. I don't know why I made such a silly mistake. That is embarrassing. I'm going to slap myself for that one. Yeah, of course I knew that. Isaac, it's been a little while. We last spoke, I think it was back in September 2018. It was just before what was supposed to be the Ryan Walsh rematch. Obviously, that fight didn't end up happening in the end. Is that still like unfinished business from your point of view, or is it just not on your radar anymore? Like I said, it was a while ago now.
Yeah, it'll always be there, won't it? It's always going to get brung up. Obviously, Ryan's in the golden contract at the minute. He's doing well. And obviously, I'm with the WC number 10, and I've been fighting a lot over in America and the States. So, yeah, it's still a good domestic battle. And I said the way we're both progressing now, it could end up down the year. It could be a world title eliminator. You don't know. It could be even for anything like that. So, listen, Lowe would be in the question, but I'm sure Ryan's got full focus on getting through the golden contract and doing his own route. And as for me, at the minute in time, I'm concentrating on February 22nd, and we'll just take one fight at a time.
Absolutely. And you're out now in Vegas. You're boxing on that Wilder Fury undercard against a former world title challenger, Alberto Guevara. What do you know about your opponent, Isaac? Obviously not a massive name, but a very good fighter.
Yeah, a lot of people won't know him. I'm probably thinking, no, he won't be that good at being a knockover, but anyone that knows boxing knows he's a tough contender. As I said, he's fought for the world title twice. He took Santa Cruz to the 12 rounds, which was a thrilling fight. And you look on his radar, who he's only been beat by. The 5 people he's been beat, 2 of them have been for world titles, and the number 3 has been world-class operators, I should say. So, obviously, you've got Shaquille, who just stopped him last time out. But I think he only come in with 8 days' notice for that fight. So this fight, he's had a full 6 weeks. So I'm expecting a good fit, and he's going to give me a hell of a fight. He knows if he beats me, he put himself up that top 10 and giving a chance for a world title shot again. So I've got to be fully focused. It's a dangerous fight, and it's one I've got to be ready for.
Yeah, you mentioned there, I mean, his record obviously consists of 27 wins. He's got those 5 losses, but, you know, every loss was to a very good fighter. Leo Santa Cruz, Yamanaka, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Hugo Ruiz, and then, of course, most recently, Shakur Stevenson. You know, this is a guy with a real wealth of experience as a professional. Are you expecting this fight to be tougher than all the rest of your fights? Is this guy perhaps a better fighter than Ryan Walsh and the other guys?
Yeah, 100%. He's the toughest test for me by far. As I said, just look at the operators he's been in with. Obviously, he knows his way around the boxing ring. He knows how to do the rounds. He knows when to put the gas on, when to put the gas off. He's going to be experienced in the fight, obviously fighting for 2 world titles. He won't be phased by the atmosphere. And I said, obviously, on the show what it is, I think it's going to bring an entertaining fight because we all know what I bring. We all know I'll bring it toe-to-toe. And he's a Mexican, so I am expecting he throws a lot of punches around. His output punches is high. So it could be a total tough fight for me. But at this level where I'm at, this is what I'm in for. So I'm ready to step up and ready to show people I belong at the big stage.
And of course, your last outing, you boxed another Mexican, a little kind of taster of what it's like to box those tough Mexicans out there in Las Vegas again last time out. So that was good prep, really, for this kind of fight, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but last time out was the worst performance of my career by far. I don't even look at that as by far the worst as this I think I've put in the boxing ring. I come into camp for 6 weeks out. I was over 2.5 stones overweight. It was more of a fat loss. Camp and to be honest, I just done well to make the weight to fight. It was more draining than anything, and especially I brought my hand in the second round in that fight, which is no secret. Everyone knew about that. So it was good to get through the round with one hand, and I had to fight through it. But as I said, this time around, I made weight comfortable. I'm on weight now. Everything's been done properly by a nutritionist, strength and conditioning. I've been fully focused. I took this. Obviously, I've had to take it 100% serious. And I'm expecting for everyone to see a world level and a world fighter, a world operator fighter in me. And I want to show people belong at the top of the tree.
And like you mentioned, this is for your WBC international title. You're ranked number 10 currently. Are you, kind of eyeing up the likes of Gary Russell, obviously being the champion? Have you kind of had one eye on him? Obviously, he boxed on the weekend as well, just gone.
Yeah, listen, I have my eye on all world champions. My target is to be a world champion, so obviously you keep an eye on it. Obviously, I'm well highly ranked in the WBC now. I probably will get through this next week, and being well, I'll got to move on the ranks even more. So obviously the WBC is the route, but then obviously there's 3 other world champions up there, so I can I'll go down any route I need to do to get a world title. Do you know what I mean? As long as I keep winning and doing what I'm doing, then surely by end of the year.
Yeah, I think Gary Russell's going to be vacating that title pretty soon. So like I said, a win here, you move up the rankings, and perhaps an opportunity will arise for the green belt, which we all know is the best one. I want to get your take on a bit of news that broke earlier today. Obviously, Josh Warrington parting ways with Frank Warren. He's now back with Eddie Hearn. There's that fight with him and Shakur Stevenson being talked about. Should that happen, Isaac, not quite sure if it's going to end up in the UK, but should the fight happen regardless of where it ends up, how do you see that fight playing out?
Yeah, first of all, sure, I don't know what's happening with Josh and Frank, right, but it was a bit of a shock. But listen, if Josh needs, he obviously wants that unification fight, and he couldn't really make it with Frank on his contract coming. He's in a better deal with Eddie. He's got to do what is best for him, innit? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's his career. You get one chance at this, and he can do whatever he takes to get done. But it's just all fight. Obviously, we know Shakur's very, very he's beaten knees boxer like a Mayweather. But one thing, what Josh and everyone, I've spent many rounds with Josh Warrington sparring with him. Josh is very underrated as a boxer. He puts good pressure on you. Obviously, we all know his heart there. His flows of punches is unbelievable. His fitness and stamina. And if it happens back in the UK, I think Josh beats him, because I think a young Shakur coming over, the atmosphere and Leeds. And I pat my man Josh all the way, do you know what I mean? Josh is I've said this from day one, when the Carl Frampton fight got made and all this. Josh Warrington is a world-class champion. And once he's very good in what he does. He's a very clever boxer inside the ring. And he hits a lot harder than what people think. And as I said, if we're back over in the UK, I would fancy Josh to beat Shakur.
Hopefully we do see the fight made. It looks like it will happen. That'll be a brilliant fight. But talking of brilliant fights, you're out there, like I say, in Vegas. You're with Tyson. You're part of the camp. Him against Wilder. How is the big man at this stage? Obviously not far out from the fight now.
Yeah, Tyson's on fire. as he is always in every camp he has. It's no different with Tyson. He's never finished a camp and never been 100% ready. He's 100% ready in every fight he goes in. There's no excuse for us. We don't lie. We don't leave no unturned. So Tyson's ready. He's big. He's strong. He's fit. He's thrown double the amount of punches what he throws in usual fights. He's hitting 10 times at least 10 times as hard. He's been learning with Sugar Hill, planting his feet more, letting his shots go, moving, reflection, just doing the basic things again. And I'm expecting, obviously, Wilder to be a better Wilder, but can Wilder get any better than what he already is? He's 35. He does the same thing every day. Every fight looks at that right hand. But I think it's going to be a different fight this time around. And trust me, don't be shocked if Tyson does not come out early.
We'd love that. We certainly would love that. Obviously, in Britain, everyone, was right behind Tyson. It was a real emotional fight, that one. The first fight that they had. Everyone kind of got to know Ben Davison as well. Obviously, he's no longer part of the team like that. But how is Tyson looking under Sugar Hill Stewart? Obviously, a guy that we don't know tons about back here, in Britain.
Yeah, he's doing perfect. Sugar Hill's an old-skill fighter, old-skill coach. Obviously, nephew of Manuel Stewart, so he's been around the great trainer like him. He's picked up things, and obviously Tyson's worked with him in the past. He's more like obviously pick your shot, getting your balance right, getting you strong on your feet, unloading, moving. They've been working well. Obviously, we've got Andy Lee in camp. So that's an extra pair of eyes too. So what Sugar hasn't been seeing, Andy's been picking up on other things. So Andy's been doing bits of things with the movement and that. I'm shot ranges. So expect an exciting fight, which it's going to be. They're both going to be coming throwing bombs. And may the best man win, because that's it. We're not leaving it to go to leave it to go to the judges this time. And I don't think Wilder wants to leave it to go to the judges. So I think someone's going to get KO'd pretty early. Let's hope it's Wilder.
Let's hope it's Wilder. I'm with you on that one, Isaac, for sure. Just finally, my man, if you got any closing words just before we let you go. Like I say, it's been quite a while since we last caught up. Just have your say if you've got anything at all you want to say to the listeners before we let you go.
Yeah, just everyone tune in February 22nd. It's going to be, I'm going to start the party off with fireworks. It's going to be a hard-grown fight for me, but one I'm confident coming through. And obviously we all expect what Tyson's going to do, and just get behind us, because we're doing it for Britain. We'll get bringing these belts on 100%. And so thank you everyone who's supported me and followed me in the journey and that, and just keep supporting. And we're here doing our best, putting our lives on the line, just for the fans really. So everyone tune in, enjoy it, and have fun.
I'm sure we all will be tuning in. Listen, Isaac, it is always a pleasure catching up with you, my man. Best of luck for Feb 22nd. Of course, I'll be watching, and I hope that we can catch up sometime right after. God bless you, mate.
God bless you, pal. Nice talking to you. Have a good evening.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 226 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. If you've stuck with me, then thank you so much for doing so. It has been quite lonely. Of course, a massive thank you to our two guests on this week's podcast, the former two-weight world champion Jessie Vargas and the undefeated featherweight contender, Mr. Isaac Lowe. Once again, I do apologise for the sound quality during the Isaac Lowe interview. It's one of those situations where you're doing the interview, everything sounds absolutely perfect, and then when you play it back afterwards, it's messed up, So I apologise once again. There has been one or two pieces of news break whilst I've been recording the show. That news is that Oscar Rivas has signed a promotional deal with Top Rank, and Isaac Chamberlain has signed a promotional deal with Mick Hennessy. Isaac's been incredibly inactive recently, so honestly, I think that move is a bit baffling, as Mick Hennessy's stable are all very inactive, but apparently he's going to be boxing on the Richards vs. Pitters undercard, and then he'll be back out again a few weeks after that on an undercard of a fight card that Mick Hennessy is announcing, I believe, tomorrow. It's supposed to be a big card, so that'll be interesting to see what that is. But that's about everything from me. Enjoy your weekends, people. Thank you all for listening once again. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.